Hey, we're on the world cruise again, the ultimate world cruise. We landed at the port of Naples, Italy, and we're going to go to Pompeii today and have a tour of Pompeii and the destruction from Mount Vesuvius.
Okay, folks, today is Sunday, June 30th, and we're in the port of Naples. And today we're going to take you on a tour of the city of Pompeii, a partial tour anyway. And that's the city just about 40 minutes from Naples that was covered by ash from Mount Vesuvius when it erupted in 79 AD. And there's another place you could go to look for the destruction from that 79 AD earthquake of Mount Vesuvius, which is Herculaneum. And it has a little bit different situation. Pompeii was covered with ash, and so they were able to excavate everything. Herculaneum was covered with mud, so once they excavated it, it's a little different. We didn't go to Herculaneum today. We're going to save that for a different day. But I needed to explain to you the path that we're going to be taking during this tour, so it'll make more sense when we get to the actual tour itself. So, as I mentioned, we traveled about 40 minutes kind of south and east from Naples, and we arrived at the Marina Gate, which used to be near the port that served the city of Pompeii. And according to estimates, this city had somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 people in it when Vesuvius erupted. There was an earthquake, a serious earthquake, a few years before it actually erupted. Some people left, but most stayed. And so when it erupted, I think it was in October of 79 AD, most of the people were still here. So it was covered, they said, with, I think she said 6 meters of ash, but it was a lot. More than around 20 feet, I guess. So when they began to excavate, it's a huge city, and we were only in the 2 hours that we had able to see this part that you see here in orange. So we're going to go in the Marina Gate. We're going to visit the main square. We're going to see the Jupiter Temple, and we're going to see all the shops and civic buildings on this end of the square. And we're going to go into the marketplace here, and that's where they have some of the bodies that were made in plaster casts. The ash hardened around them. They were able to use the ash as a mold, and they poured plaster in them so they could see what the people look like. So, and there's a couple of people in this square. It looks like they're still buried in the ground, partially excavated. So we'll go to the market square. We'll see those plaster casts. There's 3 of them. We'll see the 2 that are in the ground. And then we'll come back to the main square down this street and come over to the baths. There's some Roman baths here that are pretty well preserved. And so we'll do a tour of what the Roman baths look like. And then we'll head over here to the Menandro home. This Menandro home, he must have been one of the nobles in the city. It's a huge house, pretty well preserved. And we'll take a tour of that home. And we'll come back and look at the 2 theaters. The small theater we have a pretty good view of, and then the larger theater we can just see from a distance as we walk through here. So once we're done with that large theater, small theater, then we'll just walk along the perimeter back to the gate where we exit. So those are the things we'll be seeing: the main square, Jupiter Temple, marketplace, Roman baths, Menandro home, the theaters, and then out. So now we'll actually go to the footage, and you can have a look at what we saw. Hope you enjoy.
Here we are coming in the sped up most of the walking here, so you can still see what we see, but the walking won't take quite as long. So Pompeii gets something like 4 million visitors a year, and we're at the middle of the tourist season, so there are a lot of people today. So once you enter through the Marina Gate, you go up Marina Way through those tunnels you can see there, and that's how you get into the main part of the city. So we're going to walk up that path. It's cobblestone, and go through those tunnels that you can see. Shortly after that, we'll hit the main central square. So the stones are like pumice that you're walking on, and they can be a little slippery if they're wet at all. So this street, it's interesting. This is the street they used to carry produce up from what used to be the marina. And the eruption of the volcano moved the ocean something like 2 miles away from the city. So now we're in the main square, just off Marina Way. And this is the center of all the activity in the town. Those buildings off to your right there are the civic buildings, and we'll take a tour around those. I'll do a circumnavigation walk around this square in a minute. That statue that's on top of that plinth is not the same time frame as the rest of this. And all these plinths that are out here in the middle of the square used to be covered by marble. And then at the end of the square down there where that single column was, that's Jupiter's temple. There you go. There's a temple of Jupiter. Now we're headed up to the market square where we're going to be able to see some of those bodies that were cast from the, from all the volcanic ash that solidified around them. There's something like 1,160 bodies that have been recovered so far. Our guide told us that it probably takes 3 days to cover all of the things there are to see within Pompeii. And so we're going to be restricted to that smaller area that I showed you earlier on the map. So off to your right here is the entrance to the market square. And we're going to go up and go through there. It's hot today. A lot of people were using umbrellas to stay in the shade. So here inside Market Square, they have these glass cages where the plaster castings of the people are, you can see there. But also notice up on the walls how well the plaster frescoes have been maintained. And you're going to see that same theme in a lot of the places we go after, roughly a couple thousand years. The frescoes are still pretty good, even though they've been exposed to a lot of light since they were restored. This one here is kind of sad. And this other guy's laying down. The ones that you're going to see in a minute that are still in the earth, not totally excavated, don't look quite as serene as these. So now we're going to turn around and walk around Market Square over to where the other bodies or bones are partially unearthed. So a lot of this is covered with travertine. Who knows what these particular buildings around the square were for. Okay, here comes the shed where that guy is standing. That's the shed where we found the other people. I think there are either 2 or 3 in there. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like there's actually three sets of bones in there. Our guide told us that really the only thing that survived the hot ash fell on the city was the masonry stuff. So any of the wood that you see around has been restored during the process of excavating and getting things ready for visitors. Okay, there's Jupiter's temple right there. Now we're going to walk around the square. Those plinths used to be covered with marble, and there's bits and pieces of stuff they've recovered. No idea what all these buildings were for over here. There's the Marina Way going back down to the entrance. And then these buildings on this end were the government buildings. They explained like the city hall and whatnot. City offices or whatever. Okay, so now up on our right, we're going to go on this street that's called, it's really called Abundance Way in English translation. And this is what leads us down to the Roman baths. So you see the streets recessed down there. The sewage used to run in the streets, so it was awful, according to the guide. And a lot of places they had rocks you could stand on to cross the street. So this is the Roman bath. They had running water that came in with, they had aqueducts that came something like 60 miles to the city. And then they had, believe it or not, lead pipes to distribute the water within the city. But there was no sewage system except to put it in the streets and let it run out. So that's an above ground pool you see in front of you. And this yard here was used for exercise. Now, once inside, the first thing we're going to come to on our left is the cold pool. And it looks very much like the one I went to in Turkey that was also a couple thousand years old. So pretty authentic looking. This is the cold pool in a domed roof structure with light coming in from the top. There's cubby holes where they stored all their towels and whatnot, clothes or whatever, when they went in. And the next door is the hot area. So in typical Roman style, you'll see that they raised the floor on those tiles, and they heated both the air and the water in those pools in there. And there were fires outside. They circulated air under the floor, and they heated the water that went into various pools. So the actual floor level is the same level as the people are walking on there. And they told us that the fires that heated everything were behind us, outside that other wall. So also notice the frescoes on the walls here. There's a lot of it survived pretty well for what's 2,000 years almost. All right, so again, rather than cut out the walk-in, I just sped it up here. There's those stones where you could step across the street without stepping in the sewage. Now we're headed towards the rich guy's house. And the neighborhood's getting better. The houses are larger and more spacious. there's a fast food joint coming up on your left, right there where they had fires and could heat stuff up and sell it. Still have the travertine cover on the places where they had the fires, put the pots. All right, so we'll speed up the walking again. Go across those stones so we don't step into sewage. And we're going to head down to the Menandro home, which is a really large, beautiful home. And also very well maintained. Lots of frescoes on the walls. This looks like a pretty good neighborhood. The entrance to the house is just up here on our right. We had to wait in line a little bit until we could get in. And then you'll see kind of a central courtyard with the open roof. Water came down and filled that little pond down there on the floor. And it didn't really have an explanation for what all these rooms were for. Some of them looked like bedrooms with bathrooms. Yeah, some of them looked like bedrooms with bathrooms. The frescoes on the walls were still pretty clear. I couldn't tell what that thing that looks like a seat was, but the room next to it to the right looks like a bedroom to me. So this central courtyard surrounded by various rooms, maybe offices and bedrooms and stuff, then led outside into an open air courtyard. And some of the flooring that we're going to see in a minute is really remarkably well preserved. This almost looked like a bathtub or something in there. I don't know. It's probably maybe just a water feature. I don't know. There's a little dog figure down there on the wall. I tried to get it in focus in a minute, but my editing didn't end up right. So you see the dog. There he is. Yeah, this is supposed to be focused on the dog, but I don't know what happened. So here's the outside courtyard. And again, surrounded by rooms all around. No idea what they were all for. And this next room has the flooring that's so well preserved. So I'm going to stick my camera in the door and into a room that you normally can't go in to see the flooring. Yeah, here's where the flooring's so beautiful. And this one's even better over here. Look at that tile work. Wow. That was their own personal thermal bath in there. This home had its own thermal bath system. All right, so now we're outside. We headed over to the theaters now. That was the end of the house. This is the small theater, used for plays and performances and comedies and stuff. And the large theater is in the back there. You can see back where those trees are sticking up. You can see the seating for it up there. We couldn't actually go through that, but you could see part of the seating arrangement for it. And then this courtyard here almost looked like it was for equestrian stuff, but I really couldn't tell. Looks like there's like around the outside stables and whatnot. So this pretty much concludes our tour of Pompeii, and then we headed back to the Marine Gate and then hopped in our bus and headed back to town. Got back on the ship. We had lunch before we got on the ship, and then we sailed out. We're headed for Rome tomorrow, and we're going to go see the Colosseum. And as we sailed out, you could see Mount Vesuvius right there. Top's just barely visible above the clouds. And we'll see you in Rome tomorrow.